Yeah, this is Adrian from MBX Extreme, where we pride ourselves on quality, performance, and innovation. We thought we'd do a quick video on the ammo, the overall length. Obviously, you've got a lot of questions about it, and so just to provide a little bit of kind of background on what our thoughts are about it, and concerning the magazine design to work with different lengths of ammo. So basically, let's start with the easy one of the whole pack, which is the 40 caliber. So. The length I recommend is kind of around about 1 inch 200. You can go a little bit more than that, 1 inch 250. Basically, you want something that's reasonably long if you can, and the reason for that is because the gun was originally designed for a 45, which was obviously a longer bullet, and obviously the closer you can keep the nose, or somewhat close, you keep the nose to the feeder ramp, the less chance there is for the nose to go searching in other directions. So 1200, 1 inch 200 seems to be a very good length. That's what I like to run. Some people a little longer, some people a little less, but it's a good length to get there. And so basically what I'm talking about, you can see in this gun here where we have the kind of torn apart, and so you can kind of see how the round sits in there and how it presents itself in order to get there. The bullet really only has to travel that far, and it's already on the feed ramp, and then it's going to go up and in. That was kind of good, but anyway, it worked out good. So that's really why you want to run a little longer, so that the distance between the back of the round, the back of the round and the front of the barrel is somewhat of a minimum, so that when the slide comes along to take it, it only has to travel a relatively short distance and it gets up onto the feed ramp. Now, if you make the ammo way too long, you start to get it where it binds. It wants to go up and in, and it's still in the feed lip. So there is a kind of a medium area there. So don't go too crazy with it. So I'd say 1180 to 1220, 1230 would be about my recommendation for the magazines and the feed lip lengths and everything else. Okay, so that being said, so let's get on to some of the other ones. We have we make the magazine for the 938. So they're two completely different length of a bullet. So you can see here, there's the 38 Super Comp and the 9mm. You can see from those two, there's quite a bit of difference in height right there, or length. I'm sorry, because they're not standing up. So those are the two. So what my recommendation is, well, for the 9mm, it kind of goes back to the 40. The magazine was originally designed the gun for the longer bullet. So if you can stretch out the 9mm to 1165, 1175, the longer the better for the 9. You're really not going to be able to push that thing out beyond much beyond that because of the projectile design and everything else. So what's the reason for pushing it out? You say, well, kind of the same as I just showed you for the 40. You want that bullet nose to be able to get up onto the feed ramp relatively soon, so that it once it gets on there, it can then track up and into the weapon. So that's one reason. The other reason is, within the magazine, if you run exceptionally short bullets, and these are not exceptionally short, but they are able to basically, if you can see here, let me get this a little bit more stable, they can move around, the rims can get latched on each other, and if you have much shorter rounds, it can be a problem because there's so much movement within the tube. So you want to keep them as long as you can. These are pretty good. There's not too much movement. That's about, these are I think 1165 or 1170. So keep them around that length. It helps them stack properly in the tube. It keeps them nice and in line in the tube, and then of course it allows the nose of the bullet to get onto the feed ramp a little sooner and start to be guided up into the chamber. With the short ones, again, they move around a lot more in the tube, and it's a lot later that it gets onto the feed ramp, and there's a lot more for it just to get a little bit out of shape. So that being said, then we're going to go into the Super Comp. Well, again, the Super Comp, a lot of people like to load these long or over length, and then you get kind of the opposite effect. What's going on there is basically they will start to rub within the tube you'll see when the bullet sits up, it sits at an angle. So when you're looking at the bullet in the magazine, it's looking like it's got all kinds of room, and it's not really going to be an issue. But as the bullet straightens out, as it goes down and it starts to straighten out, like anything, the room becomes somewhat less. And depending on the nose, the profile nose that you have along the end here, depending on your nose, it can actually rub on the tube. These don't, as you can see, because this is the length that we recommend. These don't rub on the tube, but if you start to push them out, you start to get the nose of the bullets rubbing on the tube, somewhat like that. And then what happens is it's slow to feed, and you'll get issues where the bullet doesn't present itself properly because there's a lot of friction between the rounds within the tube, and it starts to nosedive and goes into the feed ramp. So the recommended length for me for these is to be honest, I like to go a little short on them and then tell people you can start to push them out, because a lot of guys like to run them long, and I tell them a spec to start with, and basically they throw their hands up and say, oh my God, I can't run that. But for me, I like to start with 1" 225 and then start to push it out from there, and then you can push it out until you maybe start to run into that where the nose starts to rub. Again, these things do not stack perfectly within the tube, so you get a little bit of variance where one might be stacked in front of the other, and so you get a little bit of friction on the front. So basically at 1" 225, that's a great starting point, and then you can start to push them out from there to get what you would like. But again, it depends a lot on the bullet profile too. That's a safe starting spec for me to recommend, and then you can go from there. And let's just touch on the 38 Super, which is a rim case. Again, that's a very difficult round to make sure that you have to have the overall length correct. And the reason is, if you don't have the overall length correct, the rims are going to lock over each other, and basically the bullet will force its way forward. By the spring will push in, the spring will push the round up, the rims will lock, and it will push the front bullet, the top bullet, into the tube, and you'll get a lot of binding, you get a lot of friction. So the Super has to be shortened up, and again, depending on your bullet profile, you're going to have to kind of work on the length for that. 1" 225 is probably a starting point, and you can push out from there. But again, there's a lot of variables there. So these are just your guidelines to get you up and running, and then you can do your final tuning and get your load set from those. Okay, thanks again. This is Adrian from MBX Extreme.